Hello again. We're really glad to be back with you. We are very sorry to hear that there have been increasing numbers of cases of COVID in a number of Wisconsin prisons. We hope you are all well and safe and taking good care of yourself and one another. So I'm Miss Shepherd. I'm back here once again with Miss Ross, and we are happy to be here to run the Buddhist service, offer the Buddhist service once again. Today is October the 7th of 2020 when we are recording. Once again, I have no idea when you actually may hear this. Miss Ross.
Yeah, thank you, Ms. Shepherd. Just grateful to be able to be back here again, and just want you all know I'm thinking of you and keeping you in mind as I practice and throughout the day, knowing again the increase in the cases just really breaks my heart, and I just hope you all are doing well. So happy to be here.
Okay, so I think we'll do again what we've done for the last couple of times now, which is the refuges and precepts. And that's if you get, well, gee, I know some of you are no longer in the chapel. Well, let's do it anyway. I know some of you have a copy in your, I had given you copies that you had personally. So maybe some of you still have those in your cell. But so I'm hoping you will. If you won't, if you don't, just listen along. So this is on page 19, if you do have the chant book. And we'll begin with the what's called the preliminary homage, the Namo Tassa. I'm sorry, I have a cold, so. And then we'll do the 3 refuges in Pali, and then the 5 precepts in Pali and English. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sama sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sama sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sama sambuddhassa. Buddhang saranang gacchami, dhammang saranang gacchami, sanghang saranang gacchami, dutiyampi buddhang saranang gacchami, dutiyampi dhammang saranang gacchami, dutiyampi sanghang saranang gacchami, tatiyampi buddhang saranang gacchami, tatiyampi dhammang saranang gacchami, tatiyampi sanghang saranang gacchami. Now we'll do the precepts. Panatipata veramani sikapadang samadhiyami. I undertake the precept to refrain from taking the life of any living creature. Adinadana veramani sikapadang samadhiyami. I undertake the precept to refrain from taking that which is not given. Kame sumichachara veramani sikapadang samadhiyami. I undertake the precept to refrain from sexual misconduct. Musawada veramani sikapadang samadhiyami. I undertake the precept to refrain from false and harmful speech. Suramaraya maja kamadatana veramani sikapadang samadhiyami. I undertake the precept to refrain from intoxicating drink and drugs which lead to carelessness. Imani pancha sikapadani Silena sugatinyanti, silena boga sampada, silena nibhutinyanti, tasma silan visodaye. These 5 trainings have virtue as a vehicle for happiness, have virtue as a vehicle for good fortune, have virtue as a vehicle for liberation. Let virtue be purified. Let me light the candles and incense, and then we will begin guided meditation.
So we'll let the sound of the bell take us into the meditation. So assuming our meditation posture, which is upright, alert, awakened spine, the head resting on the spine, the body alert yet relaxed. With the fading of the sound of the bell, we can come into being aware of our surroundings into more of an internal awareness, closing the eyes if we're comfortable, otherwise just having a soft gaze, not really focusing on anything to minimize the visual distraction, and take our attention deeper and deeper inward. So starting with just awareness of the air touching the skin, the sensation of the body on the cushion or the floor, whatever our support is. The pressure, the various points of the body as it comes into contact with the support. And then noticing more and more subtle sensations in the body. Maybe the movement of air across the skin. Maybe the feeling of the heart beating. The feeling of the breath coming in and out. So our awareness knows this body, this mind knows this body right here, right now is like this. We can ground in that experience of being in the body, the mind in the body, supported by the body, aware of this experience right here, right now. Letting go of any worries, thoughts, concerns in the outside world, coming inward. And setting an intention for our meditation practice. And I would suggest for this session that our intention be to be present with whatever your chosen meditation object is, the body or the breath or a mantra, but being present with that meditation object. The intention is to be there with just receptive awareness, not trying to reach out and get anything, to experience anything, to achieve anything, just being present with our meditation object that grounds our attention with relaxed but receptive awareness. And so we can practice in this way, making the intention to keep our awareness on the meditation object, whatever it might be, and just being receptive to receiving it. The mind knowing this object. So the breath or the body, the sound. Just experiencing it's like this. It's like this. It's like this. We may notice, especially in the initial part of a meditation, that the mind wants to go off and do something, think, plan, remember. That's what the mind wants to do. It wants to think and plan. That's our habit. We just notice and then reset our intention to just have receptive awareness of our meditation object. It's like this. It's like this. Noticing where the mind is, if it's still on the meditation object, if it's gone off thinking or planning, remembering. Just noticing where it is, noticing how it is. Is it calm? Is it sleepy? Is it agitated? Noticing how the body is, and coming back to our intention to be with our meditation object with receptive awareness. It's like this. Noticing where the mind is, how the mind is, how the body is, and returning back to being aware of the meditation object with a receptive awareness. It's like this. Maybe after the period of time here, the mind is calmed down enough that it's less likely to run off thinking or planning. And it can be with the object. We can broaden our awareness even more from focusing on the object to going to softening and widening it to just knowing that we're aware. So rather than paying attention to the object, paying attention to just the knowing that the object or sensations or whatever are coming and going, they're arising and passing away. The meditation object is coming and going from our awareness. Perceptions, sensations come and go. But the thing that doesn't change is that there's awareness. So just practice, play with this a little bit. If it doesn't make sense, don't get hung up about it. Just be open to that possibility. Being aware of awareness. Knowing that we know. We're aware because things are coming and going, but the focus, the attention is on the awareness itself. And we can notice how the mind is with this kind of practice. If you're able to widen out to that, just awareness of awareness, maybe there was a relaxation, less of a story, less agitation. Or maybe you noticed it was frustrating and you couldn't figure it out, and now the mind is agitated. It's trying to do that and it's not successful, so it's frustrating. So just noticing, how is the mind in doing this practice? Being aware of awareness in whatever way, and how is the mind? So by practicing in this way, we get to know our mind and how it relates to experience in a little different way that tells us something else about how we relate to our experience. Maybe if we're just aware of the awareness, the sense of there being a me doing it drops away and it feels relaxing. Maybe if this was confusing or frustrated, there's this sense of the me being frustrated and you feel more agitated. Just noticing it's like this. The mind being curious about the mind in this way is like this. Not judging, just noticing. And this is our practice, to get to know the mind, seeing when there's stress, seeing when it's agitated, seeing when it's relaxed, and encouraging the relaxation and the non-agitation. We can do this on the cushion, and we can do it every moment of the day. It's like this right now. So the bell ends the practice, but just reflect a little bit on your experience, what you may have noticed. Was there some opening from the awareness to the awareness? Or was there so much confusion, we were agitated? Just noticing how it is. And then letting it go. Not holding on to whatever we experienced, but just tucking that away as another learning opportunity. So coming back to the awareness of all of us together in whatever way we are together, whether we're in our individual places or whether we're gathered as a group, just being grateful that we're able to come together in this way and practice and share practice. Even though I can't see you all, I sense that you're out there, and I'm grateful, that we're able to come together every couple of weeks, and Ms. Shepherd and I can share some thoughts. And the big thing that's missing from this is, I wish we were there to hear what you had to say, because this is where my true learning always happens, is hearing what your experience is. But for now, we're just offering our experience and practice and hoping that there might be some benefit. And always, we recommend, if you have questions or want something covered, please send a note to the chaplain and they'll forward it on to us so we can maybe answer any questions you might have. So today's topic kind of relates to that meditation that we did today, and it relates to something I've been working with a lot these past few weeks, really trying to kind of simplify my practice and getting away from teachings about teachings too much, but just trying to notice when the mind is stressed out and when it's not stressed out. And that should be really simple, but of course it's very complex because the mind is complex. But I've been helped by one of the teachers that Ms. Shepherd and I, actually two of the teachers that Ms. Shepherd and I share. We listen to talks and teachings by these teachers. They're monks, they're monastics in the Theravada tradition. And one of them, Ajahn Sucitto, is very analytical, and he talks about the different qualities or characteristics of mind. And when we talk about mind, like, what is that really? We always think about it, it's the brain. Well, it's not the brain, it's more than that. And the mind has a lot of qualities to it if you really think about it. The mind has the quality of the ability to think or do activities of the brain, thinking, planning, reacting, doing. And so it's what he called the volitional or the action part of the mind, that wants to do something. And it usually relates to, I want to do this, or I need to do this, or whatever, so that's kind of that aspect of the mind that I relate to my mind, and my mind tells me to do this or wants to think about this. So that's one part of mind. But then there's the other part of mind that just feels like a sensation. I wouldn't call it an emotion, but just receives, a sense impression or a thought. And there's like a movement, and the Tibetans talk about the heart mind. It's actually the heart that is where you feel this aspect of mind, where it's moved, right? It's moved to sadness or to joy or pleasant or unpleasant. And you kind of feel this as an energetic quality, but it's still an aspect of the mind, like we're knowing it, we're aware of it. So it's less strong maybe than it's less active than that planning aspect of mind, but it actually can be kind of strong sometimes, this feeling aspect of the mind as it takes in senses and has like an emotional or a heartfelt response to them, or an energetic response. And then the third part of mind, a component of mind, is what we were playing with in that last meditation, which is just awareness, like just knowing. Like, how simple is that, right? It's just, we know. Some people call this consciousness, and we're not going to get in the jargon of all that, but, just that we know that we know. I mean, the mind can be that simple, just knowing that knowing that this entity is here right now, not doing anything, not feeling anything, but just here. And so that's like the simplest and the least busy aspect of mind, I would call. And so we can notice in our meditation when each of those qualities of mind comes up. So like maybe in that last meditation, maybe the mind, if your mind is anything like mine, I'll tell you what my experience is. The mind is initially really busy and agitated, right? I come from the world into sitting down in meditation, and it wants to think and plan, and what am I going to do next? And what's this all about? How do I do this? Blah, blah, blah. And so the mind's really agitated. So we use that intention to just be present with a meditation object to try to get it to maybe decrease that activity so we can see what's behind it, and get it to calm down so we can start to have less of the doing and see more of those other characteristics of the mind, this feeling aspect or the feeling quality, or just the knowing. And so maybe in the meditation, as the mind calmed down, maybe you just noticed that the mind got calmer. Maybe you could see when the activity started to want to flare up again, there was like some energy, maybe you noticed that, and maybe it subsided when we came back to just being aware of our object. And then maybe at the end where we are just being aware of awareness, that decreases what we're asking the mind to do, right? We just want it to be aware, so we're not giving it a whole lot to do, just notice this. And maybe the mind calmed down even more. Or maybe you got agitated because you couldn't figure out what that meant, right? Then you could watch the mind go crazy, like, why can't I do this? And then the selfing comes back up, and the agitation that comes with that of like, I need to do this, and I can't figure it out. And we can watch that, So this is what we do. We can watch these different aspects of mind and seeing like which ones are stressful and which ones aren't, which goes back to what my current dilemma is, like, like how can I recognize when the mind is agitated versus when it's calmer, and when it's really calm, where there's just that kind of that knowing quality, where actually the sense of me having to do anything drops away, and I'm just there aware, and it feels really calm. It can be very deep sometimes. And so we can experience these, and by experiencing it, then the mind can start to get a sense of how it operates. So that's the mind watching itself. And we can notice which ones feel best in the body mind, like which ones are stressful, which ones aren't. And the mind just by itself, wisdom, which I think we talked about a few sessions ago, our own wisdom then knows like, well, why am I holding on to all this doing or whatever? It's agitating. Why not just be with, have that non-reactive awareness, just being with. And then if an action is required, the wisdom will know something's needed, but otherwise, can we just be here like in the middle? Equanimity or equipoise means just being in the middle of it. And how does that feel? So we can play with these different aspects just to see how the mind is under different conditions and which ones feel like they're more helpful to us. And so this is what my practice has been for quite a number of months, just really trying to simplify it down to this. Is it stressful or not? And then by that noticing, see if that doesn't encourage following a path that's a little less stressful. And as always, I wish we were there with you guys so we could hear, what your experience is with this, maybe the frustration or the possibility of this, or maybe you've experienced this all in a different way. And that's why we have these conversations, to try to share our experience. All of our minds are different. And so what I'm offering here is just different ways that you can be just curious and play with the mind, not having it be heavy, but just go like, what does happen here? And the curiosity doesn't have a self to it either. It's just plain curiosity. It doesn't have to be me figuring out. It's just like, what is this? It's just a mystery. Let's explore the mystery. And so see what your experience is, and whatever it is today might be different tomorrow. Who knows? But this is how I spend my time. Ms. Shepherd, what do you think about all this?
Thank you. So as Ms. Ross said, I've been dealing with exactly the same investigation because we've been listening to the same teachers. And actually now every teacher I listen to, I realize is saying exactly the same thing. And one of the ways I've been thinking about it is sometimes it's phrased as receiving the Dhamma. So, we talk in the Triple Gem about the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the Sangha. The Dhamma being the teachings, or more accurately, the way things are. That's what we're trying to understand, the way things are. And the Dhamma of the world is the way things actually are. And so this teaching that Miss Ross was suggesting, directing us towards, I think of it as receiving the Dhamma. It's how can we receive the way things are instead of constantly conceive, think about the way things are. So we are receiving rather than conceiving. And it very much has to do as well, just as you said, with, at least for me, with simplifying, recognizing what's our experience like and how are we complicating it? How is everything getting more complicated? Another beautiful, there was a nun, actually she was originally a laywoman nun in Thailand back in the 1960s. And her writings are titled An Unentangled Knowing. And that's very much helpful to me as well, thinking about, well, where is the tangle in what's happening in the mind and the heart right now? Why does it feel tight and tangly? And how can I unentangle? How can I uncomplicate? How can I simplify? How can I release? And even saying it that way, because it's not I'm doing it, it is a recognition of what is being added that's not needed, that's actually not the way it is, but added memories or thoughts or fears or plans or stories or worries or all those things that just get added onto the Dhamma of what's actually happening now. And so in these teachings, what these teachers are all aiming us towards is receiving the Dhamma. And so one of the examples that it has been given a lot and seems very relevant, I can't hear from all of you, but I do meet with other meditators every week where I can hear from them. And it's very common that people are talking about how helpful the practice is during this difficult time, but that also their formal practice has fallen off, that they are not practicing as regularly or consistently, that they're not feeling as motivated to practice. And so to use this kind of instruction for that can be really helpful, to notice, instead of saying, oh, I don't have the energy to practice today, and not practicing, sit on the cushion. And the practice then is awareness of not having energy. What does it feel like to not have energy? Oh, this is a feeling of not having energy. Sometimes we can name what the feeling is. Sometimes we can't. When we can't name it, don't get tangled in trying to name it. Instead, use the phrase that Ms. Ross mentioned, which is, oh, it's like this. So sometimes it might just be, I don't know what this is, but it feels like this. And maybe it's pleasant and maybe it's unpleasant. Doesn't matter. But this is a feeling of this. If it's unpleasant, maybe you'll say, oh, this is a feeling of unpleasant. This is a feeling of resistance. This is a feeling of lack of motivation. This is a feeling of no energy. But so instead of believing all of those feelings, that's how we complicate stuff. We believe it, we build on it, we embellish it, and then it's a tangle. So instead of going that way, what we're doing is trying to bring awareness, receive it. That she taught, Ms. Ross talked about receptive awareness. We're just receiving it. We're not acting on it. We're not reacting. We're not acting. We're receiving the experience. And in taking in that experience, we are making it conscious. One of the teachers talks about bringing things into consciousness. But until we bring them into consciousness, we can't really move through them. What we generally do is jump that stage of bringing them into consciousness and just try to do something about it. That's the complicating. Instead, awareness, receiving the Dhamma, brings them into consciousness. And we sit with them. We welcome them. We learn from them. We befriend them. We just know that's what's happening now in this very moment. And bringing that curiosity, exactly as Ms. Ross said, that an attitude and a feeling of curiosity is a wholesome mind state, a wholesome heart state. It's not caught in desire, demand, wanting things to be otherwise. It's just curiosity. So in being able to do that, even if it's an unpleasant feeling, we are replacing unwholesome greed or aversion or wanting to get away or wanting to hold on to unwholesome qualities that tighten the mind and heart, are not of help. We replace those with curiosity and acceptance and a willingness. And those are wholesome qualities of heart. So it doesn't mean that one of the things that the same teacher, Ajahn Dhammo, said that was so helpful, I thought I knew this, but clearly having him say it really helped, is that this idea of awareness, bringing things into awareness, is not control. So it doesn't mean that just because you bring it into awareness, then, oh, okay, now I can fix it and I got it. No, I think it's easy to fall into that. I certainly have. Instead, it really is just awareness. It may not change. It may get worse. It may still hurt. It's not that we're fixing it. We're just receiving it with an attitude of openness, softness, as Ms. Ross said, widening, acceptance, allowing. Willingness is the term that's always helpful to me. We're willing to be with it. And in that willingness, it gives it space. It produces a spaciousness around our lived experience that makes it bearable and even pleasant, even when it's unpleasant things. So it's not that it makes us like things we don't like, but that it makes them just part of the world, part of how we know things are. And of course, that's exactly what we do in our day-to-day life as well, around the whole teaching of the Four Noble Truths, that we realize that in every life there will be loss, aging, illness, death, suffering, but that we don't have to add the pain of resisting that, which makes it even worse. Instead, we know that's the truth of the realm we're born into. And then how do we bring forth wholesome, helpful, generous, kind, wise qualities of heart in order to help ourselves and other people? So this is the problem is it can't be put in words. And so there's all these words. I find, receptive awareness, receiving the Dhamma, unentangled awareness. One more is an unrestricted awareness. To notice, well, what are the ways I'm restricting my ability to actually receive this because of my wants, desires, memories, plans? So that's probably all I have to add, maybe too much. But it certainly does, I think, open the heart to considering other ways of being with the way every human life is, the sorts of things that happen in every human life, and recognizing that not responding in maybe some of the ways we've habitually responded is actually a path out of suffering. Anything to?
I guess, and this practice, I can just imagine some of you out there in TV land going, well, this makes me a doormat, right? I'm just receiving and people can just walk all over me. But what we're practicing with is another way of being, rather than, I don't know about you guys, but like before I started practicing and really noticing, I was so reactive. Something would happen and I immediately pushed back, and whatever my habit was, half the time I didn't even know it was happening before I was immediately in reaction mode. And most of my habitual actions, the go-to actions, were not helpful. They came from anger or impatience or whatever. And so we're intentionally trying to do something else to calm the mind enough so we can actually see clearly, so we really know what's going on, because that habit action comes from the unconscious mind. You're not really thinking things through, it's just happening. And so we're training the mind the other way to be more conscious, more aware of what's actually going on with some clarity without that emotional reactivity, so that we can then decide, is there something that needs to be done? But we can take an action then from a place of clarity rather than just reactivity and not liking things the way they are, as Ms. Shepherd was talking about. I don't like this. I'm either gonna, I don't like that I'm not getting enough of this, so I'm gonna grab for more, or I don't like this, I'm gonna push this away. I mean, that's our habits. But, is there another way of being it? Do I really need this, or do I really need to get rid of this? Can I just be with it and really sense what's going on here, and then determine if something else needs to happen? So we're kind of swinging the pendulum the other way to train the mind to just not go into reactivity mode. And in doing that, we're generating new habits, right? We're generating the habit of pausing, being with, assessing, really seeing clearly what's going on. And then, if needed, wisdom can tell us from a place of clarity, this action is needed. And that's the thing that I found most beneficial from this, because my reactivity got me in so much trouble. So I'm just, every time I catch myself pausing, I'm like, oh, thank goodness, and that's what the practice is about. And so we don't have to be doormats. We also don't have to be so volatile that we just flare up and burn everything up, at the drop of a match. We can stamp out the match and then just go, okay, what really needs to happen here. So that's kind of how I work with this. But again, everybody's mind is different. The reason I introduce all these different ways of working with the mind is my mind is different on different days. And so it's another tool I can have in my toolbox. Some days I need a hard Dharma lesson to whip me into shape if I'm really out of control. But sometimes this more relaxed approach when I'm feeling stressed out is what works for me. And the reason we introduce these is so each of you can kind of play with these with that curiosity, like what's working now, and not be confused by it, but just know that your mind's going to be different on different days or as your practice progresses. And you're just kind of tucking this away like, oh, might it be helpful to say it's like this right now, or know that I know, or whatever. I've got a bunch of these catchphrases that they're my go-to for how to just reground myself in the practice so that I can then decide if there's anything else that's needed. So
thank you. I'm so glad you mentioned that question about doormat passivity, because that comes up all the time. And it's an important question. The other night I was talking to people actually in California because of Zoom. And someone said, well, that he felt awakened to a lot of things that he had been blind to before. And what about social action? How do you, because I was talking about the same thing with them. How does this relate to social action? And I said much exactly what Ms. Ross said, is that it absolutely relates to social action, because what it means is that the mind and the heart can become clear and settled enough to actually know what's happening. That's receiving the Dhamma. What's really happening here? Not what are my stories, what are my fears, what are my political proclivities, what did my parents teach me? What did that person say? What's really happening? And when we can do that, when we can get clarity and centeredness on that, that's wisdom. And then wisdom, we have wisdom to respond, to bring to these social issues that we are terribly concerned about. And what I said to them, and I'll say here too, is that to me, John Lewis totally embodied that. John Lewis was able over decades to sustain attention and persistence on issues that for many of us just completely bring us to our knees, right? Bring us to despair and anger and hatred and ill will and giving up and all of those unhelpful, unwholesome qualities. And John Lewis was able to sustain his attention, his clarity, his persistence, I think, through this sort of receiving the truth of the way things are. He wasn't trying to make it look better than it was, but it never was. In being able to see it clearly and not getting sucked into the complications and entanglements of his views and fears and worries, he was able to be there and just keep working, keep being an inspiration for all the rest of us. And that's wisdom to me. And that's what this sort of unentangled knowing, receiving the Dhamma, unrestricted awareness, that's what it allows us to do. It allows us to then go into the world with a heart which is open, kind, receptive, and able to help. So not at all passive.
And we don't have to save the world, but if we can just not add to the problem, so those of us, if you don't feel compelled to save the whole world, like poor John Lewis was trying to take on everything, but like just my relationship with this difficult person right here, right now, is there a way, or this difficult person right here, right now, myself, is there a way to relate in a calm, wise way that doesn't make things worse? Like I have a simple goal, but if I do that, then I'm not sending ripples out into the world, creating more turmoil, So whatever your individual hope is for how to be in this world, whether it's big or you feel like, no, I just have to work on this right here, it applies in all of those cases. And whatever we do for ourselves, we really are doing for the whole world. And so just think of it that way. It's not selfish either. And we're not doormats.
Yeah, not the whole, he happened to be famous, so.
Yeah.
But what he did is what many people do. I think one of the most moving things in the funeral ceremonies was hearing the people, the staff that had worked with him, how much they adored him, how much they felt he just gave them so much on a day-to-day basis. We can all do that to the people that surround us. We maybe aren't able to do it with the skill and beauty and kindness of John Lewis, but we can try. And we are all in touch with people. We are all, we see the people that are in the grocery store that deliver the mail or are your cellmates, that there are people that we can make a difference for. And in making a difference for ourselves, we make a difference for them. And we're that for each other. You're that for us, and Miss Ross and I are that for each other. That's what being a Kalyanamitta is, the Pali word, spiritual friend. We are spiritual supporters for one another, that we want the best for each other. We want each of us to be uplifted and to be the best we can be, because we know that we have it in ourselves to do. So I guess time to do our dedication. Okay. So let me share the screen. Just a minute here, sorry. May the merit of our practice support and nourish us. May we feel inner wealth so that we can practice the joy of giving. May we always offer goodwill, knowing we cannot control the course of life, suffering, or death. May we see our own limits with compassion, just as we offer compassion to others. May our practice train the heart-mind, in clarity, kindness, and wisdom. And may all beings, not one left out, not a single one, be well, be safe, and free from suffering. So take care. Best wishes during this time. We hope you are all not suffering from COVID, and if you are, you get all of the help and support and medical attention needed for this very serious disease. So take care of yourselves and each other, and we'll look forward to seeing you in a couple of weeks.